Well, thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and in this special edition of the broadcast over the course of the next 30 minutes, we'll update you on everything that's been happening around the world. And let's start with what is happening in North Africa, where Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir's 30-year reign has come to an end. Bashir was overthrown and arrested in a coup by the armed forces. The defense minister has announced a 2-year period of military rule that will then be followed by presidential elections. Protesters, however, have demanded that they will not agree with the plan that's been announced by the defense minister for a military rule, and have demanded that a civilian government must be established as soon as possible. Now, the ouster of Omar al-Bashir, who is 75 years old, followed months of demonstrations against his rule. And thousands of people packed the streets of the Sudanese capital Khartoum to protest against the army's announcement of military rule. In an address on state television, the Sudanese defense minister announced a 2-year period of military rule to be followed by presidential elections. The mood amongst the protesters changed from that of celebration after the ouster of Omar al-Bashir to that of anger after the announcement by the defense minister that a civilian government will be established after 2 years of military rule. And a car believed to be carrying an army general was then surrounded by the angry protesters, who jumped on the roof of the vehicle and also smashed its windscreen. The Sudanese army has imposed a nighttime curfew across the country after toppling veteran leader Omar al-Bashir. Sudan's military has warned the protesters not to defy curfew in the wake of popular protests against military rule. Now, the month-long curfew was declared by the defense minister hours after Omar al-Bashir's removal. World Bank Group President David Malpass has expressed his willingness to build a constructive relationship with China at his first press briefing since having taken office in Washington, D.C. Malpass has said that as the new head of the World Bank Group, he will continue to help developing countries worldwide to achieve better economic growth. And Malpass has said that under him, the World Bank will provide all necessary loans and guidance. The World Bank president has also stressed on 3 major challenges the global economy is currently facing. The SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket launched its first commercial mission from Florida. The 23-story tall rocket blasted off from the Kennedy Space Center, carrying its first customer payload. The Falcon Heavy was carrying a communications satellite for Saudi-based telecom firm Arabsat, which will beam internet and television services over Africa, Europe and the Middle East. Roughly 3 minutes after having cleared the pad, Heavy's 2 side boosters then separated from the core rocket for a synchronized landing at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. The middle booster, after having pushed the payload into space, returned 10 minutes later. And a big setback for Israeli space mission. The country's first privately funded moon mission, Bereshit, has crashed. Experts said that the unmanned robotic lander suffered periodic engine and communications failure during the 21 minutes of the landing sequence. Bereshit had traveled through space for about 7 weeks before crossing into the moon's gravity last week. So far, only 4 nations have succeeded in carrying out a soft landing on the lunar surface: India, the United States, the Soviet Union and China. The Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg has said that 67% of its 737 MAX 8 customers have tested the manufacturing software fix to simulator sessions. Speaking at a leadership forum in Dallas, Muilenburg said that the Boeing team had made 96 flights totaling a little over 159 hours of airtime with the updated software. Boeing has further added that there are additional tests that are expected in the coming weeks. Boeing is under pressure to deliver an upgrade to software that is under scrutiny in 2 fatal crashes within the last 5 months. The Federal Aviation Administration will be holding a meeting today with major US airlines that fly Boeing 737 MAX airplanes. 3 major pilot unions will also be a part of the meeting. The FAA has said that the meeting will help it gather facts, information and also individual views on the Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft models. The Pilot Association is expected to provide feedback and also input regarding pilot training related to 737 MAX 8. The FAA has said that its officials continue to gather all available information and data in considering the return of the 737 MAX 8 to service. The landmark judgment, South Korea's Constitutional Court has ordered that the ban on abortion must end by the year 2020. The court said that under the 1953 ban, abortion was unconstitutional. Women who have abortions can be fined and even jailed, except in cases of rape, incest or risk to their health. The doctors who performed the procedure can also face prison time. One of the United States' most stringent abortion laws has been signed into the Ohio state. The new law bans abortions after a detectable heartbeat, which could be anywhere between 8 to 10 weeks. Now, the bill outlaws abortions once a fetal heartbeat is detected, which doctors say can be as early as even 5 weeks into pregnancy. This is before many women know that they are even pregnant. The heartbeat bill, as it is being called, is a major victory for the anti-abortion activists of 5 previous US states that have passed what are known as heartbeat bills. 3 have seen their laws being struck down or blocked by the courts. The South Korean President Moon Jae-in and also US President Donald Trump met at Washington. The meeting was aimed at discussing ways to restart denuclearization talks with North Korea. The meet comes after Trump's second and latest summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The Trump-Kim summit ended without a nuclear deal and was seen as a stall in the US-North Korea dialogue on ridding the North of its nuclear weapons. The North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has vowed to deliver a serious blow to countries which are imposing sanctions on it. Kim said that North Korean economy must become self-reliant based on power, technology and resources. It is believed that Kim was in fact referring to the United States without naming the country. Remember, North Korea had in fact demanded the lifting of US sanctions at the Trump-Kim summit in Hanoi in February. US President Donald Trump has said that the 3rd summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un might happen. Now, Trump spoke during an Oval Office meeting with the South Korean President Moon Jae-in. Moon was in Washington for talks that he hoped would put denuclearization with North Korea back on track after a failed summit between United States and North Korean leaders earlier in February this year. Spain is headed for an election later this month. The country's Socialist Party has launched its electoral campaign in Dos Hermanas. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has kicked off his campaign, promising to raise the minimum wage to about 60% of the value of the average wage in Spain. He's also vowed to close the gap between men and women at work. 47-year-old Pedro Sanchez is a trained economist. He has led a minority government since June last year when the Socialists had unseated the Conservative People's Party following a no-confidence motion. Pedro Sanchez called the election after the parliament had rejected his 2019 budget. Thousands of angry pensioners took to the streets of France to protest against French president's reforms and to call for a re-evaluation of their pensions. The reforms have been met with a backlash from workers' unions, students and pensioners, and this is the 7th time that the pensioners have taken to the streets to protest against Macron's policies. Members of Greenpeace unfurled a large protest banner on a building in Madrid days ahead of the general elections in Spain. The yellow banner was made to represent an invoice listing the impact that Greenpeace believes political decisions are having on climate and human rights. 4 climbers reached the top of the 60-meter-high building to display the banner. Spain is holding general elections on the 28th of April, and Greenpeace is calling on the country's main political parties for action to stop climate change. And Pope Francis, in a dramatic gesture ending an unprecedented retreat at the Vatican, knelt down to kiss the feet of South Sudan's previously warring leaders as he urged them to not return to a civil war. He's urged South Sudan's President Salva Kiir, his former deputy turned rebel leader Riek Machar, and 3 other vice presidents to respect an armistice and commit to the formation of a unity government in the war-torn country. US President Donald Trump has said that he did not have an opinion about the arrest of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Remember, United States has sought the extradition of Julian Assange over publishing of secret official information. Trump went on to say that he expected Attorney General William Barr to make a decision on the situation that Assange presently is in. British police, remember, had arrested Julian Assange on Thursday after Ecuador withdrew its political asylum. Assange had taken refuge in the country's embassy in London in 2012. In the United States, a bipartisan group of half a dozen influential American lawmakers have reintroduced an important legislation in the House of Representatives. This legislation seeks to advance the US-India strategic relationship, and if enacted, the legislation will ensure that the United States State Department will treat India as a NATO ally for the purposes of Arms Export Control Act. According to the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, which had worked on this important legislation, Washington's defense sales to India should be prioritized. Now, Amazon listens to your conversations with Alexa. According to a report, Amazon employs thousands of people around the world to help improve its line of Echo speakers, popularly known as Alexa. In this process, the team listens to voice recordings captured from the homes and offices of Alexa owners, and these recordings are then transcribed, annotated, and then fed back into the software. Amazon claims that this process eliminates gaps in Alexa's understanding of human speech and also helps it respond better to commands. The people responsible for this process work a daily 9-hour shift, and each of them reviews as many as about 1,000 audio clips per day. In Seattle, a 20-month-old boy survived a 60-foot fall from an apartment. The boy landed on the roof of a parked car that cushioned the impact of his plunge from an apartment window. The toddler landed in a way where the car absorbed enough of the impact. When the paramedics reached the toddler, he was awake and crying. Authorities said that the boy is in a serious but stable condition. The police believe that before the accident, the infant was alone in a bedroom when his mother and 2 siblings were in another room. Russia has launched a massive military exercise in the annexed Crimean Peninsula. The military drills involved a battalion of the S-400 missile defense systems. They were first introduced to the Russian military's arsenal in 2007. Russia annexed Crimea in 2014, and the annexation has prompted the United States and the European Union to impose sanctions on Russia, plunging the Western nation relations with Kremlin to their worst levels since the Cold War. The Philippines and US troops participated in a massive amphibious landing exercise on the outskirts of Manila. Soldiers simulated a scenario of recapturing enemy territory by boarding amphibious assault vehicles from 2 warships. The exercise comes amidst heightened tensions between China and the Philippines in the disputed South China Sea. Now, India's beleaguered Jet Airways has said that it has grounded about 10 more planes over unpaid dues to leasing companies. The Indian airline has cancelled all westbound long-haul flights out of the country for the day. The airline had already grounded more than two-thirds of its fleet, and now after these latest developments, its operational fleet size may well be less than 20 planes, which is the minimum that is required under Indian regulations to be able to fly overseas.